Good old Ann. Ball is dropped. This is one of the key words in my mind, dropped, because that tells me VI, 0. VI isn't always 0. Sometimes we're launching an object and VI won't be 0, but here VI is 0. We want to find out how high is the cliff. That's asking me to find D. I've done a bad job teaching you. I haven't emphasized enough that this D that we're finding is always a displacement. And what does that mean? It's going to have a directional component. If you end up below from where you started, you're going to get a negative answer. If you end up above from where you started, you're going to get a positive answer. What if you end up right back where you started? What's your displacement? Sorry? Yeah, 0. That's going to show up once in a while as well. And so I've had a number of people, what's the difference between distance and displacement? What I would say to you is, if you're using the equations, that D that you're finding is a displacement. Sometimes that's the same answer as the distance, if there's been no direction change, but sometimes it's a bit weirder. I'm in free fall. I know VI is 0. They gave me time is 14.5. I think I can use D equals AT squared over 2. Why didn't I bother writing the VIT? It's 0 and I tend to abbreviate. If you wrote D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, I'm fine with that, but I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to get negative 9.8, 14.5 squared, all over 2, or times 0.5, whichever way you want to do the 1/2. Negative 9.8 times 14.5 squared divided by 2. Did you all get negative 1,030? Point blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to write negative 1,030 meters. And if you said that, you get 2 out of 2. Technically, height is a scalar, and we're going to look at height properly later on this year. So if you said that the answer was positive, I would also give you full marks, because that's usually how we describe how high a cliff is. That's the English version of that displacement. 2 out of 2 for that. Otherwise, I would give you 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the numbers, and a half mark for the answer. What's B asking me to find? Good. And impact, we're also at the bottom, the same as when we figured out how high the cliff is. So I'm not going to relist everything. I can use this data. In fact, I would probably choose to use VF equals AT. What happened to the VI? 0. Am I expecting a positive answer or a negative answer here when I hit the ground? Okay, if I get a negative, I'll smile. I get negative 9.8 times 14.5. Negative 9.8 times 14.5. Do you get negative 142? You can put the 0.1. Negative 142 meters per second. Here I would say you have to have the negative because it is a velocity. 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer, but if you got the right answer, 2 out of 2. What's the velocity of the cannonball after 6.4 seconds? This is also asking me to find a V final. I'm going to relist stuff because the situation has changed. VI is still 0, A is still negative 9.8, but T this time is 6.4. I'm looking for an equation that has those in it. Matt, same idea. VF, Mr. Dueck, is going to be VI plus AT. I didn't bother writing the VI because it's 0. So it's going to be negative 9.8 times 6.4. And I got negative 62.72. I would take negative 62.7. I would take negative 63. I wouldn't take negative 62. I'd take a half mark off, and I'd say learn to round off. The 14.5 that they gave me is 3 sig figs, so I'm kind of going to 3 sig figs. Negative 62.7 meters per second. Same as before. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. If you can get the correct equation, that's worth a mark. How far is the ball fallen after 8 seconds? D equals VI is 0, T is 8, A is negative 9.8, and I'm going to use d equals at squared over 2. You may have noticed 1a and b and c and d are really identical questions, just with different parameters, different numbers to start out with. Negative 9.8. 8 over 2. I might be able to do that in my head, because 8 over 2 is 4. Negative 9.8 times 2 is 19 points at 4. 39 points, negative 39.6, is that right? Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. Negative 9, yeah. Oh, that's younger. Ach, danke. Yes, 8 squared. Wow, candy for you. I'll get you one in just a second. I better type this in properly then, because that seemed a little small to me. Do you get? How about negative 314? I would take negative 310. I would take negative 313.6. If you said negative 313, I'd take a half mark off, and I'd say learn to round off properly, please. So I'm going to go negative 314, and that's meters. Technically, when you say how far has it fallen, probably, Haley, you wouldn't put the negative. You'd say it fell 314 meters, and the word fell would imply negative, but if you left the negative there, that's fine. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Now I thought the questions got a little more interesting, because now we're not dropping something, we're throwing something. Number 2. Ball is thrown straight up with a velocity of 36 meters per second. How long does it take for the ball to reach its maximum height? Oh, let's do change colors, Mr. Dueck. What's that 36? Oop. It's only one thing. I need 3 things to find the 4th. What else do I know? Oh, what's the acceleration if we're in free fall? Yeah, on the way up and on the way down. What else do I know, Ben? Yeah. What? Now, let me be clear. The only time VF is 0 is when you're at the very, very top. It's never going to be 0 when you're at the bottom. It'll be 0 after you've hit the bottom, but we're never talking about that. I think I've done my rant about how if you do a belly flop onto the cement, if V final was 0, it wouldn't hurt. Trust me, it will hurt. Looking for an equation that has T, VI, A, and VF in it. There is one. Yeah. Oh, you made my day, Ben, because last class somebody started saying, well, VF equals VI. Let's now decide. We can rewrite the equations and go to the final step. T equals? Good. VF, 0. VI, 36. Negative 9.8. Time, scalar or vector? Ooh. Yeah, it's a scalar. Time is always positive. If you ever get a negative time, go check your signs. Almost certainly that was your mistake. Time can't be negative. I watched Star Trek once and they went backwards into... No, time can't be negative. You get 3.6734. I'll go 3.67. 3.7 seconds. Probably should go 3.7 because it's 2 sig figs. My rule of thumb in physics, if we're making up questions, we're not doing actual labs, go to 3 sig figs. That's a good compromise between reasonably accurate but not stupidly accurate. 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. I think B is asking me to find D at the top. I should get a positive answer because we're ending up above from where we started. I'm not going to relist all my data. I'm going to use this. It's going to be D equals VIT plus 1/2 AT squared. It's going to be 36 times T. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to be using a time value. I don't want to do that. I'm going to use D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2a, and that way I can use the data that they gave me. Now, if you did use d equals vi t plus a half a t squared, I won't freak out. Probably now you've done enough physics that you can feel reasonably confident in using an answer to find an answer. I just try and avoid it on a quiz or a test. I gotta be honest, in my homework, I would have just gone d equals vi t plus a half a t squared and quickly crunched it. Especially because I would have had the time value stored on my calculator. I could have used my answer button. Here it's going to be 0 squared minus 36, I won't forget the square this time, all over 2 times negative 9.8. 0 squared minus 36 squared divided by 2 times negative 9.8. You get 66.1? Same as before. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. I mean, Mr. Dueck, if I just know what equation to use, I can probably pass just by figuring out the correct equation because I'm going to get 1 out of 2 on everything. I'm much more concerned, Oscar, about the process than the answer. I really don't care as much about the answer. By the way, Oscar, part C, how many marks is it worth?
1.
How many marks was part B worth?
2.
How many marks was part A worth?
2.
I wonder if part C is worth 1 mark because you can get there in your head. How many marks is part E worth?
30.
You have to look at the quiz that you have in front of you. How many marks is part E worth? I wonder if that also means that I can do it in my head. That will usually be the case. If I make a question 1 mark, that's my way to suggest you can get there pretty quickly. There are exceptions. On this test, as a matter of fact, on your upcoming test, there is going to be 1 question. It's so nasty, it should be worth 4 marks because you're going to find something. It's multi-step. But I don't want to kill people if they get it wrong. I don't want it to lose 4 marks. And so I think you'll see in brackets, I wrote something like, this one is nasty. It's only worth 1 mark. It should be worth 4, but I didn't want you to lose all those marks if you couldn't get it right. But the amount of work that you'll be doing, it's got some intensity. But usually, if something's worth 1, that's meant to be really easy. So here's the question. How the heck can I do C without doing any work? What's the impact velocity of the ball? Did we start on the ground? Looking at number 1 at the top there, looking at number 2 at the top. Did we start it on the ground? Yeah. Did we end up on the ground? Yeah. So we're not on a cliff? Then we have a bunch of shortcuts. And one of the things we can say if we start on the ground and end on the ground is what goes up must come. So what's V final? Negative 36. It is interesting. Some of you actually did a complete proof. You solved for time up, you doubled it, and you found V final. And if you used your answer button, you would have got exactly negative 36. Some of you rounded off, and so you said, Mr. Dueck, I got negative 35.9998. I think you were trying to get negative 36. You're going to hit the ground mat at exactly the same velocity, same speed that you left the ground, opposite sign, so opposite velocity. D wants me to find time. There's 2 ways to do it. Method 1 is you could take your answer from A and double it. And I would probably do it that way if I had the time value on my calculator or really handy, or I'd written it down. So if you go 3.673469,388 times 2, you're going to get 7.35. Now, if you go 3.67 times 2, you're going to get 7.34. I would take both, 7.3 something. I'm okay with that. But just be aware, whenever you're using a rounded off answer to find another rounded off answer, you're going to be a little bit in trouble. So one way to do it would be, I'm ignoring you for a sec, Ben, 7.35 or 34 seconds. And I would give you full credit there. You had a question? Did you use the 3.67 or did you use your answer button? Then I will let you round off to 7.3. You'll notice if I use my answer, if I use my answer button, if I round off right there, what's next to the 3? A 4, so it would stay a 3. I'm okay with that. I gotta be honest, what I probably would have done is I would have used negative 36 minus 36 all over negative 9.8, because I can type that in really quickly. And that gives me the time value to as many sig figs as I need. That gives me, you can see a repetition of this one up here. Bang on. So 7.35 or 7.3 seconds. How many of you did it this way? Doubling the time? How many of you actually calculated it this way? Really? Okay. My other class, no one did that. They all did that. So it's just interesting. People latch on to different strategies. And I think I've told you, you are at a point now where you'll probably, for a lot of questions, have 2 or 3 options at your disposal. Pick. But try and do it like a good test writer. Ryan always think, I don't want to use something in order to find something. 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Oscar, in this question, we started out on the ground and ended up on the ground. So what's our displacement?
0.
Yeah. And that's why this is 1 mark. If you didn't put the meters on the 0, I won't freak out because 0 is kind of weird. But you probably should have units. Three and 4 are a little more interesting. Number 3 says a ball is thrown straight up from a cliff at 24 meters per second. It hits the ground at the base of the cliff after 12 seconds. How high is the cliff? It's asking me to find D. VI this time is 24. A, negative 9.8. T equals 12 seconds. I'm going to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. And this bothered some kids. I've had several students come to me and they said, hey, Mr. Dueck, look, here's the cliff, here's the baseball or whatever it is, it's doing that. How the heck can this give me that distance? I'll tell you. This number right here is giving you let me get this right, Mr. Dueck. VIT, if A was 0, plus a half AT squared. Basically, this has a positive section and a negative section. And what's really going on here is we're adding part of that in and then subtracting that. And if you go that minus that, what's left over is the cliff height. The equation takes care of it quite wonderfully for you, which is kind of cool. So it's going to end up being 24 times 12 plus 0.5, negative 9.8, 12 squared, you say? I say so too. 24 times 12 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 12 squared. You get negative 418. I would take negative 420. Would not take negative 410. I'd say I'd lose a half mark. Now, technically, this said how high is the cliff, and what we have found is a displacement. Oh, you could also say negative 417.6. Technically, the height is positive, but I won't freak out if you didn't put a positive height in. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Oscar, how many marks is B worth? 3. Not 2, 3? I wonder if we're going to find something and use it in order to find something. Oh. I'll be pretty consistent with that throughout the whole year, so there are kind of hints. Well, it's a height. We want maximum height at the top. At the top, I know VF is 0. VI was 24. A, negative 9.8. Well, I can go VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. I can go 0 squared minus 24 squared all over 2 times negative 9.8. $29.4. Is that right, Mr. Dueck? Did I use the right numbers? Yeah, I did. 29.4. Have you got that? Why is that wrong? Yeah.
You have to add the height of the book.
Oh. This just found that height. I want that height. So the actual height is going to be 29.4 plus 417.6. It's going to be this number plus 417.6. And so I get 447. So that's the answer to get 3 out of 3. Otherwise, I would give you 1 mark for that, half mark for that, half mark for that. So if you got the 29.4, you'll get 2 out of 3. Half mark for adding, half mark for the answer. Okay. Now, supposing you got A wrong. Let's suppose you typed something wonky or you forgot a squared. If for part B, you got 29.4 and you added that number there, I would give you 3 out of 3 for part B, even though it's totally the wrong answer. So if you're marking stuff and you find you got a part A wrong, but you used part A to find part B, but you did part B correctly otherwise, give yourself 4 marks for the second part. Okay. Matt, what did I write in brackets here? What was it? Careful, you say. Why would I say that? I'll bet you there's some curveballs I really have to watch out for. I mean, the first part seems obvious. And I know this. 24. And I know this. And I know this. And I've made a mistake. Can anybody see what's the mistake that I just made? Yeah.
It's negative 92.
Okay, the problem is when we're on a cliff, if we're ending up below from where we started, our displacement is negative. Okay? If you miss that, sometimes you'll get an error on your calculator, which at least William gets your attention and suggests go check your signs. Sometimes you won't get an error on your calculator. So I think I'm going to use VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. How to get rid of a squared? Square root. I'm going to go the square root of 24 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 92. If I had missed that, if I had gone 24 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times positive 92, I end up trying to take the square root of a negative number. Can you take the square root of a negative number? And so if you try and do that, your calculator is going to give you some kind of an error. Mine says non-real answer. Yours might say math error. Someone will say syntax error. Here's what it's really saying. The universe is tapping you on the shoulder and saying, look, you told me you were accelerating down, but somehow ended up above from where you started. I got an issue with that. Okay. So I want to have a negative 92 there. Square root of that. And I get 48.777. I'll round that to 48.8. And that's wrong. That has to be wrong. Why must that be wrong? Yeah. But my calculator said the answer was that. Calculators don't lie. Well, it's software. What's the square root of 9? It's 3 or negative 3. And up until now, 99% of the time in math class, Cole, you wanted the positive answer. But this time we know we want the negative answer. And so we're going to have to add after the fact a negative. I don't know of any software that doesn't give you the positive root. So that's what you're going to get. Doesn't mean you always make square roots negative. Sometimes if you know you're on your way up, you'll keep it positive. B. So 1 mark, half mark, half mark. If you miss the negative here, 1.5 out of 2. If you missed the negative here, you would have gotten a math error, and I'm hoping that got your attention. Again, though, you won't always get a math error there. Depending on the numbers that we have for our V initial and our D, it might give you a non... Anyways, just be careful. That's why I wrote careful. Oh, I like this question, I like this question, I like this question, I like this question. What's B asking me to find? Now, you might be tempted to go VI equals 24, A equals negative 9.8, and D equals negative 92. If you did that, the problem is you're going to get D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, and you can't get the T by itself. If VI was 0, if we were dropping an object, we can get the T by itself. Times by 2, divide by A square root. But it's not. I understand some of you are learning what equation that is. It's a quadratic. And you could use your quadratic solver or the quadratic equation, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4acl over 2a. And if that sounds like gibberish to you, by Christmas time it won't for most of you. I would choose to use the fact that VF equals negative 48.777. In fact, I'm not even going to use 48.777. I'm going to use my answer button. Because then I can go T equals VF minus VI over A. Negative 48.777 minus 24 all over negative 9.8. Negative answer button. Negative 48.77704,378 minus 24 divided by negative 9.8, and I get 7.43. Did anybody do it using the quadratic equation method and solve it and got the same thing? And you also get a negative time. We chuck the negative time because time can't be negative. 7.43. As before, 1 mark, half mark, half mark. If you got it right, 2 out of 2. If you need to come lawyer with me, now is the time. Otherwise, put a score on the top and then pass